In this video, we are going to do the WNBA preview. Yes, it's a few days too late, but really it's too early to take much from these games anyway. Hopefully, I do not overreact from the first weekend of games. We shall see, but I think it is much the way last year. I think these teams can be booked into very distinct classes. Now, we did this last year. We had first class, business class, economy, and then there was Spirit Air. And would you rather fly Spirit Air or go Greyhound? That is the question. I think we have two definite Spirit Air teams, but we will go through that before we start. If you enjoy the content, then please consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. All right, let's get into this. Now, currently, I have three teams that are making the big left turn to go into first class, that being the New York Liberty, the Minnesota Lynx, and the Las Vegas Aces. First, we'll go with the Liberty. Now, they are hurt by the Lainey Hamilton knee injury, but they still have so much anyway. I'm not too concerned about them when you have Jonquel Jones, Breanna Stewart combined with Fevich. That's just a lot of size in the front court. And then in the backcourt, you've got Inesco as well as Natasha Cloud. That's good enough. I see them the perennial favorite along with the Minnesota Lynx. The Minnesota Lynx returned everybody except they lost one player to the expansion draft, that being Xanda Licini, but I don't think it really matters that much because Bridget Carlson, her game's pretty much identical to Xanda Licini. They're very similar players. The exciting thing, if you're Minnesota, is that Diamond Miller looked good in the opener versus Dallas. She was moving well and just making things happen. That's the type of dynamic player that will potentially give them a little bit more. In addition, I guess the key for them is also having Alana Smith. She's currently injured, but she needs to have back up her breakthrough year last year because her at 6'4", combined with Nafisa Collier, that was just deadly for teams and allowed them to play exceptional defense. So her maintaining her health is obviously very, very crucial. Now, the Lynx did bring in French player Badian, who's a big and looks good on film, but she really struggled in that first game against Dallas. I don't know if it was opening nerves. Again, trying not to draw big conclusions off of one game. But yeah, she definitely had some butterflies in her stomach, it looked like. Final team I have in first class is the Aces, the Las Vegas Aces. Now, they got it handed to them by New York, but I, again, don't want to overreact to one game. I just think if you have Chelsea Gray combined with Asia Wilson, Jackie Young, and now Jewel Lloyd, although Lloyd did not play very well, going 2 for 10 for 5 points, and she was minus 19. Yeah, I still think it's ultimately going to work out as they get more comfortable. The only concern with them, the Aces, they never really fixed their problem at the 4. I just don't know if Kia Stokes is going to give them enough at the 4 when they go up against the Lynx or New York Liberty, who have bigs that can shoot outside. I think that'll be a tough matchup for them. And ultimately, it sort of really has bitten them in the backside on how they handled the Derica Hamby thing. Hindsight is 2020, obviously, but they would have been so much better just keeping her, letting her have her maternity year, no waves, versus the trade for Candace Parker and then all of the blow up after that has just really been costly for them because they still can't fill that 4 spot. They still won the championship despite Candace Parker being out all year. Would have been much better just letting her have her maternity leave, and then they would have had their 4 spot filled. Now, I have 3 teams in business class, that being the Seattle Storm, the Phoenix Mercury, and the Indiana Fever. So I'll just go through them one by one. So the Storm went down to the Mercury on the road. Again, I'm not going to take too much from these games. Diggin Smith looked good in pick and roll. They've got Gabby Williams returning. That's the positive. And they've got Agumake, of course, and Izzy Magdabor. So they're big and talented. Will they have enough scoring down the stretch? Their defense will be good. That would be my big question. I still don't understand not trading the number 2 pick away to get in Ariel Atkins, as I think that would have fit their timeline better versus going for the number 2 draft pick. Malanga as well. I think the injury to Jordan Horston, that will hurt them as well. That will hurt their depth, obviously, but injuries are part of the game. Overall, yeah, I think they'll be solid and they'll be fighting to get into that upper echelon. There's always a chance this could go really, really bad. You never know if Diggin Smith will implode and the team will blow up. That's always a thing when you have Diggin Smith on your team. Could she go off on the coach or anything like that? You just have to keep an eye out. It's always interesting. Now, the Mercury showed the good and bad of this team, of what they could be. So the good was Thomas was bullying her way to the basket off a pick and roll with Sabally, and then at times they were popping the ball out to Sabally, who was drilling three-pointers. It was a good, strong game by Satou Sabally, what you would hope she would be. The bad was early on in the game, she rolled her ankle, and it's just a reminder that Satou Sabally has had lots and lots of injuries, and it's a rolled ankle, not a big deal, but it's just a reminder that this is all predicated on Satou Sabally staying healthy, and she's only done that one time. The other question is going to be, and it should be interesting to find out, will Satou Sabally, if she remains healthy, will that allow Alyssa Thomas to match up better versus the elite teams like the New York Liberty and the Minnesota Lynx, who she has struggled against because they put size on her and they can just totally back off on pick and roll, and she was not able to beat them in the last 2 years. It's always been a struggle for her, so that will be interesting to see. And again, the scary part is that's all predicated on a healthy Satou Sabally. The last team I have in business is the Indiana Fever. They will obviously score points with Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston. The concern, though, is defense, more precisely perimeter defense with Mitchell and Clark. Although the additions of Dewana Bonner and Natasha Howard should help that, especially with Howard, is a big upgrade on Nalissa Smith, who was basically unplayable at the end of last year. The other addition that Indiana made that I forgot to mention was Sophie Cunningham, who obviously can shoot, but she's not really going to add to their perimeter defense as well. So my overall take on Indiana is they made solid moves during the offseason, and they will be better. But how much they improve will ultimately be dependent on how much improvement Caitlin Clark makes. If she just goes nuclear and further ups her game, then she could drag them into the final. Do I think they're a championship team? No, but you never know. Potentially that is the case. I didn't think Minnesota was a championship team last year, and look what they were able to do. So you just never know how it's going to come together. And obviously, Indiana fans would be excited about this team, and then the beatdown that they gave Chicago in the first game. But again, I am trying my best to avoid overreaction to one game. So thus far, we have 6 in the playoffs, that being New York, Minnesota, Las Vegas, the Seattle Storm, the Phoenix Mercury, and Indiana Fever, and that leaves 7 teams vying for 2 remaining playoff spots, that being Chicago Sky, Atlanta Dream, Washington Mystics, the Dallas Wings, LA Sparks, Golden State Valkyrie, and the Connecticut Sun. Well, I'm calling it now. The Golden State Valkyrie and the Connecticut Sun are not making the playoffs, although the vibe at the 2 different venues should be vastly different, with all the fans excited about Golden State. But the Connecticut Sun, with the announcement that they're looking to sell the team, that could be a very ugly scene for the WNBA. I guess the big question for them is, when will they trade off Marina Mabrey, and what will they get for her? You know it's coming. It's just a matter of time. Now, the remaining 5 teams, they all have warts, some worse than others. Chicago Sky, they still have issues with, I think, Reese and Cardoso. How are they going to play together? This latest game versus Indiana doesn't build confidence because they only had 1 or 2 shots outside of the key. I think that's an ongoing issue regardless if Tyler Marsh is coaching. Possible remedy to that would be Rebecca Allen, but she has an injury history of her own, and I just don't trust her to be healthy. Before I get reprimanded by Quita, Yes, I think your team will make the playoffs. Maybe Ariel Atkins is a step up in their guard situation, although I think Courtney Vandersloot is long in the tooth, and I'm not real big on Kia Nurse as well. I think there's a reason the LA Sparks let her go. So I think your team, Quita, can make the playoffs, but I suspect they will be a one and done. The Atlanta Dream are also a team I think that could make the playoffs is if it goes right. So Brittany Griner looks like she is in good shape. So this potential of Griner and Jones, I know what they're trying to do. We'll dump it into them and dominate on the inside, and then they will kick it out to Tahina Pow and Ryan Howard. The thing that makes me nervous about the Dream is clearly Ryan Howard has a license to shoot at will, which she took the other day. I think she went 2 for 13 versus Washington. Again, it's a one game sample, but Ryan Howard has often been a Riki Jr. in my opinion. She's inefficient and will take any shot, and she does score points, but inefficiently, and I don't know if that will work. So to be determined as well. They might struggle for the first few weeks because Jordan Canada is out, I believe, with a knee injury. They say she might be about 2 weeks away, but that could hurt them a bit. The other team that might be in the mix to make the playoffs is the LA Sparks. They got an opening win versus the Valkyrie. I don't take a lot into that. Kelsey Plum went off. My question is, once teams really start focusing in on Plum, will they have enough? I'm not sure. I suspect that they will just miss out on the playoffs. But I still think they can have a really good season if they get more development from Kia Jackson and she turns into a core player, as well as Cameron Brink coming back healthy and displaying that she is a unicorn and can be an inside-outside big. Then that would set them up really well going into 26, as you'd have Kelsey Plum, Brink, and Rikia Jackson with a bit of experience, not to mention they might be able to land a good free agent in the offseason, as so many will be free agents. Combined, that they might even get a good pick in the 2026 draft. So if all that happens, then yeah, I think the future potentially looks good for the LA Sparks, hopefully, if they don't mess it up. The Mystics are in a similar vein to the LA Sparks. They've got veteran players that know how to play, like Brittany Sykes and Stephanie Dolson and Shakira Austin. But in addition, they've got young players like Aaliyah Edwards, Kiki Ariafen, and then incoming Sonia Citron. The knee injury to Georgia Amore is disappointing, but they could be knocking on the door. They'll get a few. They'll get a few wins, and I think they'll be in it. But I suspect they'll just miss out on a playoff spot. But they couldn't make it, regardless of which two teams make it in the playoffs. Again, I think they're going to be early first-round fodder for whoever they meet up against. And then the Dallas Wings, I'm less bullish on the Dallas Wings. I think they'll struggle. I just think it's hard to have Nalissa Smith as your 4, as it really debilitates your offense. They're just sort of a weirdly set up team. I don't know. It's sort of they're semi-in on defense with Dejanay Carrington, but then you've got Paige Beckers and Arike Ogumawale, so they're just an odd mix of a team. They still have McCowan there, who got like 3 minutes versus the Lynx in the game they played. There's just a lot of strange parts, which is a bit of the hangover from Greg Bibb. Again, I continue to say it was a massive mistake when they did not take Aaliyah Edwards, because I thought it was pretty obvious Howard was going to be leaving, and it would have been nice to have Paige Beckers working with Aaliyah Edwards versus what they have right now, where she's trying to do pick and roll with Nalissa Smith, and I'm sure she's missing Sarah Strong. So there you have it. There's your 2025 WNBA preview. I have in first class the New York Liberty, Minnesota Lynx, and Las Vegas Aces. In business class, I've got the Storm, the Mercury, and the Indiana Fever vying for a playoff spot. I have essentially 5 teams, that being the Chicago Sky, Atlanta Dream, the LA Sparks, Washington Mystics, and Dallas Wings. And then going on Greyhound, because I can't get on the plane, is the Golden State Valkyrie and the Connecticut Sun. Now it's over to you, your thoughts, your poison. I'm sure I'll get a lot of poison as I often do on WNBA videos. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great night.